Hi, Kirsty, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm very tired because I'm still surviving life with a semi-newborn. He's 16 weeks now, so
Mm.
sleep isn't great, but otherwise good.
Yes, yes. The first year is really up and down as you navigate all of those
Yeah.
growth spurts and changes. Babies don't really do routines and schedules, so you just kind of have
Mhm.
to flow with them. Hey, well, today you're based in Scotland, so it's your afternoon too, which is nice. And
Mhm.
you're going to tell us about your journey of having a home birth and doing so with the diagnosis of cholestasis, which I'm going to let
Yeah.
you kind of take the reels on explaining that for everyone, being a mama who's gone through it and your symptoms and whatnot. But before
Mhm.
we dive on into that, let's dial back to becoming pregnant. Was that a planned pregnancy? Did you know that you wanted a home birth even before you got pregnant? Like, what was your journey? Take us back.
Yeah, so we were very lucky. We got married in on the 27th of May last year. And I actually got my period on the morning of my wedding. So I was like, oh, of all the days that you wear white. But it was fine. I guess it was sort of like a new chapter beginning. And so um we went on honeymoon straight after, and it was very much a honeymoon baby. We By the end of June, so exactly a month later, I knew I was pregnant.
Wow.
So yeah, we were lucky. Also, where we live is it can be very cold in the winter. It was down to about minus 20 degrees for a few days last year. So we were like, if we're gonna have a baby, we really need to have one like in the spring or summer, because having a tiny, tiny baby in such freezing climate is not going to be easy. Um, so we thought, oh well, that would be like try right now, and that would be the start of spring, March time. So yeah, that's just how it happened, and yeah, very blessed that it was so quick and easy.
Beautiful. And did you know from the get-go you wanted to have a home birth?
No, to be honest, I don't think I'd ever really thought beyond, like pregnancy. I it hadn't really been on our radar. And it wasn't till I got pregnant, and then we kind of had a bit of a running joke that, like, oh, we might have to have a home birth, because even in March in Scotland, like in the Highlands where we live, is it can have like heavy snowfall. So we were like, oh, we might get snowed in, ha ha ha, we'd have to have a home birth kind of thing. And also our neighbor, we only have one neighbor who's about half a kilometer away, and she is a retired midwife. So we were like, wow, that's just so perfect. Like, if we need to call in the reinforcements from next door, we can. So it sort of started as a joke, and then I love to sort of delve into detailed stuff. I've got books like right from the get-go. I had like a big sort of like 12 book delivery. Just, Ina May, Natalie Meddings, Rachel Reed, Sarah Wickham, like all the sort of just full of knowledge and information that
How
I
did you
wanted.
know
And
of
I think
them? How did you know of
I
them
think well,
without,
because
yeah.
it's just that as soon as I joined, as soon as I became pregnant, I just went onto Instagram, found all these different,
Yeah.
that's how I found your podcast and everything, and just thought, and one book or one podcast will reference another author, and I
Yes.
just kind of just clicked book by them all. And
Yeah. I love that.
within yeah, I was like, go, 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 just learn everything. So I did that. And I think by the time I'd finished the first or second book, I was like, well, there's absolutely no question that I home birth is for me. Like, that's definitely what I want. I definitely had a lot of fear around it because of where we are. We're over an hour drive to a hospital. Um, and obviously, being a first time mom, everyone is like, oh, what if, like the whole fear based narrative.
Mhm.
But we actually decided not really to tell anyone that that was our plan, because we didn't want to invite in that fear to
Mm.
the situation. So the only people that knew that we were planning a home birth were our doula and our neighbor, because we were thinking, well, we might need to call you in if we're snowed in and the midwives can't come down, or our doula can't get here or whatever. So
Yeah. So did you have a good pregnancy? I know that, we're going to get to your
mm,
cholestasis diagnosis, but before that, did you have a good pregnancy?
yeah, it was really frustrating because I think I had sort of a textbook pregnancy. Obviously we conceived really easily. I didn't have any symptoms, no aversions. I think the only thing I didn't want to be around was coffee, but I wasn't going to be drinking that anyway. And yeah, everything was just perfect, totally low risk until week 36. And
Yeah.
I just felt like, everything kind of came crashing down a little bit. It was quite scary. I think maybe from about week 35, I was having symptoms, but I just hadn't really clicked that they were unusual. So I think it was the turning point was when my husband came into our bedroom and I had my leg up on the bed and I was itching it with my hairbrush because I was like, I can't get relief any other way. And I was just sort of like going up and down. And he was like, I'm not sure, like, that's probably not normal. And I would be walking, if I got up to go to the toilet at night, I would be walking barefoot and like sort of twisting my feet along the carpet to try and get like the itch because it just seemed to be worse at nighttime for some reason.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it was a weekend that happened, and me being me, I just sort of went just looked into everything I could find about it, and kind of self-diagnosed.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, I um sort of realized, well, I think that's what it is. And I was a member of a couple of home birth Facebook groups as well. And I posted on those, these are my symptoms. This is what I think. This is what I'm worried about. Does anyone have any experience with this? Like, what can I do? And there was a couple of women birth workers who had assisted other women who had had ICP in their pregnancies, and they managed to have natural home births. So they kind of helped me by telling me what they did and what they found helped and how they got there. Yeah, I think I was so disappointed because we were so close to having just like a totally straightforward pregnancy. And then obviously all these things happened where it just put more and more pressure on us, because we'd had this, like I got the blood test and confirmed it was cholestasis.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Um,
ask.
and yeah, so I think I'd already been doing the research, and then I had the blood test a couple of days later, and it was, then the midwives were saying, well, actually, we're not so keen on supporting. We might not be able to support this home birth because it puts you into a risk category.
Were you with the
If it gets,
NHS home births,
yeah, yeah.
midwives? Ah, right.
Um,
Okay.
so that was, I mean, I was still at that point, I still had, so it's categorized mild, moderate, and severe. And at that
Mm,
point, my levels were still mild.
mm,
They did peak into moderate at one point,
mm.
but then I really doubled down on the sort of, I just created like this protocol for myself from what other people had suggested and what felt right. And then I managed to get it right back down. So I think the highest level was for me was 48, and it came down to 21
Yeah.
before, and that was the last blood test I got before I went into labor.
So for
Um,
anyone listening right now who doesn't know what cholestasis is, can you just say briefly what your symptom was? Obviously,
yeah,
itching is a big one that we've
yeah.
already kind of figured out.
Mhm.
Yeah, just and the research you found that helped you make decisions. And then I would love to hear how you brought it down. I think everyone would like to
Yeah,
hear
sure.
that in case someone is listening who has this.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, my only symptom was itching.
Mm,
And I tended to be fine during the day, and it was just at night, like it was like I had ants crawling under my skin. Like
mm,
I just couldn't, no matter how much, and I was itching my forearms and I was breaking skin. Like it was so, so bad.
mm.
Um, so yeah, I just quite unbearable at times. But I think some people kind of get the itching, the whole way through pregnancy. I was, I guess, in some ways lucky that it only came towards the end because I only had to bear it for another 3 weeks. But yeah, I don't know obviously if I had raised bile acids before that because I didn't have any other symptoms, so I didn't look into it and there was no reason to. And it was only when I got in touch with my midwife and said, like, I've broken skin on my arm and I'm itching my leg with my hairbrush. Like, I need to know if something's wrong. She sort of said, yeah, like that's probably a bit of a red flag. So yeah, I think the main things I changed, I actually ended up moving. My parents live about 20-30 minutes away from us. And we were in our house. It's like a very old, crumbling cottage. So there's always something going wrong. And at the time, it was February, so it was very cold. And there was essentially a giant hole in our kitchen roof because our little pantry ceiling had given up. So my husband was repairing it, and it just made the house freezing. And I was just late stages of pregnancy, just your energy levels are so much lower. And I just didn't, I think I was just using so much energy to try and stay warm. And we don't have sort of gas central heating. It's we have to light a fire to get hot water and to get heating pumping around the house. So we have to get the logs in from outside it was just too much for me at that stage. So I kind of moved in, and my mom just mothered me and just took really good care of me and just made me I told her what I can eat, and she would make me meals and just let me have have a bath and just totally chill out and stay cozy in their house, whilst my husband fixed the problem at home. And yeah, I think that really helped. I really needed to rest. I was still working as well, and I had at times quite a stressful job. So I think for me, the stress was actually one of the biggest problems and contributing factors to the cholestasis. And I just really I actually went on maternity leave 2 or 3 days earlier than I had planned to, just because the symptoms were getting so bad at that stage, and it just wasn't worth, working for the extra 2-3 days. So rest was number one thing that I changed. I basically didn't move. I would only walk or stretch, and that was the only movement I did. And I did a lot of breath work. I kind of made a mantra. Like our doula gave us some malabeats, so I was like holding on, going through them one by one just to get into my head like something, I can't remember what it was now, it's something like my body can detox the extra bile acids, and just if I say it enough, my body and brain will start to believe it. So I did that like 3 times a day. It's like 300 times saying it to myself. And so a lot of rest, breath work, tuning in, just trying to, because I was obviously really scared. One of the main dangers of sort of severe cholestasis is increased risk of stillbirth. And I was getting phone calls from doctors I'd never met or spoken to before, leaving me voicemails telling me, do you know that you're increasing your risk of this? And we think we should put you in for an induction now. We think we should do you want an elective section now? Like, and I was, I think 37, maybe 38 weeks at that point. And I was just kind of taking it week by week, like thinking I just really want to make it to my due date. And then, like if I had a sort of, my husband and I had a level in our minds that we were comfortable with taking the risk up to. And then after bile acids reached that level, we would consider intervention.
I love that you did that research for yourself, because a lot of women don't. And it really is when it gets up to that severe, right, levels of cholestasis, of the bile acids, that is really true. We can talk about, okay, the increased risk here, but when it's still low where you were at,
Yeah.
Yeah, I just encourage anyone who gets the cholestasis diagnosis that do your research. Where did
Hmm.
you find your best? Was it Sarah Wickham, or who did you find had the best kind of resources for you with that? I
Um,
know she has some good
I
ones.
actually I really struggled to find information about it that was clear.
Okay.
Um, I don't think I think there was a an American somebody on Instagram who's our doula sort of sent us the link to it, and he did a podcast all about it. Um, I can't remember his name. I can maybe send it to you after when I found
Sure.
it.
Yeah. I'm
But
pretty sure
the
Sarah Wickham has a resource on it, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Okay, I don't think I came
mm,
across that. There is also like an ICP charity website that has the basic facts about sort of like what the stillbirth increase
mhm,
sort of percentage risks are.
mm,
And I know when it gets really high, it is significant. It's like 3.4% higher
mm,
risk. Whereas
mm.
when it's low down, it's kind of the same as
Yes.
any other pregnancy.
Yes,
Um,
exactly that.
so yeah, it was kind of just putting that all into perspective and thinking like, yes, this is something I've been diagnosed with, but actually, what's the risk to
Hmm.
me and to the baby at this stage? Is it
Hmm.
any higher than it would be if I
Hmm.
didn't have it? At this point, no. So we want to continue, but we were very much being advised
Yeah.
to have the induction and have the an elective section,
Yeah. And
just
it's
basically like let's get baby here now.
totally, and it's so important to, sit with the risk benefit analysis, isn't it? And
Yeah.
then you need all the facts because it's kind of thought from the medical establishment that a cesarean and an induction is benign, which is not true.
Mm.
There's risk with that too for
Yeah.
both mum and bub, just as obviously cholestasis has a risk. But when it's low
Yeah.
levels, you have to think about, okay, so if it's almost like a normal low risk, well, I hate the word low risk, but just the normal freaking pregnancy, you know, um, is it really, yeah, something to be so worried about then? And yeah, to really look up the stats, so important when you get any kind of diagnosis in pregnancy because yeah, it's just so massively over medicalized, generally, just
Yeah.
everything. So you have to question,
Mhm.
you have to be kind of, unfortunately, be an investigator yourself and
Mhm.
do your research when you do get something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to sort of read between the lines as well because they come at you with quite scary statistics, but actually when like it's 4 times as likely that you're going to have stillbirth, and that sounds really scary. But when you look at percentages, maybe like 3.4%, and it's still high, but it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound as intimidating. Sorry, intimidating. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's how you
we
use
kind of
language, hey. It's very much like
exactly,
that.
yeah.
It's saying like, oh, it's
Um,
4 times more likely, but it's like what 90 what was it, 97% chance that it's
yeah.
nothing. Yeah,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's how you word it, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I think we got comfortable with that. We had a call as well with like a clarity call with like another birth worker who really helped us put that into perspective too. And then I think once we got comfortable with that, um, and we were having blood tests every sort of 2, 3 days anyway, just to keep tracked. Which I was happy with because I think it can spike very quickly. And I wanted to know where I was. And I also wanted to, I was curious to see if what my diet and things was going to help. So I was like,
So
I kind of want to
what is
see
the
if,
diet? You never told us about the
yeah.
diet.
So other than rest, I did a diet that was very strict on basically like zero, just a really not fun diet, like not zero refined carbs, zero refined sugars, not even really that much fruit. I had only lean proteins. I had only good fats. Not in a way that was calorie restrictive, obviously, because you need a lot of energy at the late stage of the pregnancy. But I was having, like olive oils and coconut oil and stuff, but not I wasn't eating like sugar or like, I don't know, bread or anything like that. I was sticking really to like eggs and lean meats, all the greens. I was just like loading up with greens all day, every day. And I would probably have about 2 or 3 lemons squeezed into water. I was drinking loads of water, I was having apple cider vinegar. Um, and I also was having any bitter green teas, so like nettle, dandelion, that kind of thing. Um, and then I got some supplements too. So I got dandelion root supplement and milk thistle supplement. So I was having the max sort of dosage of those every day. Um, I also was doing other kind of detox things like having Epsom salt baths. And I, I don't know if this is controversial, but I felt comfortable doing it. I did a castor oil pack, like a topical pack over my liver. Um, I think maybe twice a week for about 30 minutes each time. And I also got had acupuncture. I only had one session because baby decided to come quite soon. Before I was going to have another one, but I didn't make it to that. So and it wasn't to induce me or anything. It was just to try to, I think, I don't know what the terminology is, but just clear the pathways for the liver. And it was quite funny because the acupuncturist was kind of like, your baby's foot is like right in your liver, like it is just like kicking, it is like shoved in there. She was like, no wonder your liver's under pressure. And this will just go away as soon as baby's here, so don't worry about it. And like that really helped as well, like just hearing it from a third party who doesn't have any background of what's been going on. She was like, yeah, I can, like, it's just, that's not gonna be easy on the liver when you've got a little foot kicking it and sticking in it. So I was like, okay, that makes sense too. And then what else did I do? I think that was it really. Yeah, just a lot of rest and meditation as well added on to that. And just trying to be happy. Like I really let the stress take a mental toll. And I think I had one day where I was just like inconsolable because I was like, oh, my home birth plan is not going to happen and I'm so upset. And I just had to let everything out and then kind of like reset and just say, like, what's going to happen is going to happen. And I'm doing everything I can to get to where I want to be. And if I, like, there's nothing else I can do to control this situation. So I just need to be happy with what I'm doing. And baby will come the way baby needs to come. So it was really funny timing. I think I'd been at my mum and dad's house for a week. I woke up, I'd had like 2 or 3 nights of amazing sleep, which I hadn't been having. The symptoms started to dissipate slightly at night. And I think just being relaxed and obviously the diet and everything. I have no idea if, like, I can't categorically say that's what helped. And because I'd spoken to the doctors and asked, if I do this or if I, clean up my diet, or not that I didn't have a clean diet, but if I specifically focus on these things, will it help? And they just said, like, there's nothing you can really do. Like the bile acids just tend to trend upwards, and so does your liver function. Like there's other markers that they look at. And so I was sort of like, okay, well, all I could do is try. But the symptoms definitely lessened. And then I think I woke up one week after I'd moved in and sort of said to my husband, like, I'm ready to come home. Like, I want baby to know that home is a safe place to come to, and I feel like rejuvenated. So I'm good. Like, let's go home. So we drove home that afternoon, and that evening my water broke. So
Wow, you had a
yeah.
feeling. Your intuition was
Yeah,
telling you,
I mean, I
hey.
didn't know at the time because I think I
Yeah.
actually bumped into one of my mom and dad's neighbors when I was leaving, and she was sort of saying, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm tired, but I think I've still got another 2 or 3 weeks," because my mom and my sister both went past 42 weeks with their first babies.
Yeah.
And I went into labor at 39 weeks and 2 days, and I
Yeah.
think he was born 39 and 5 days. So it was quite a bit
Mm.
earlier than them. So I was surprised. But
Mm.
I honestly, when my water broke, I was like, yes, I don't have to have another blood test. Thank God. I'm
And
so
did the home
relieved.
birth midwives, were they happy to still assist you at home if your levels were
Um,
low?
Yes, because my last recorded level was 21. And I think it's 19, which is like the threshold for when you have cholestasis. But because I was in the mild category, I was still not considered a higher risk because I was kind of the same risk as any other pregnancy at that stage. Um, so I was just so relieved because I felt like I was on the hook every time, like it was like getting an exam result. Like I was nervous when I heard from my midwife with the results, because I'd be like, oh God, it's like, what's it going to be this time? And if it's higher, then I need to like work harder at the diet, or I need to, calm down more. I was like, it's so hard to not be stressed when it's all you think about. So it was a really big relief that I didn't have to go for another test and that it was happening. Um, but we didn't actually tell our midwives when the waters broke initially, because it was like a trickle. It wasn't like, like a big pop or anything. And it was quite gentle, and that was on the Sunday night, but baby wasn't born until Wednesday early morning. So we were kind of like, we know that we're on a clock as soon as we say something. So we're just gonna, I was having very sort of irregular, gentle contractions right from the waters going. Um, but it wasn't established, like, it was quite slow progress. But we just didn't want to kind of like, I don't know, get examinations or anything like that. We just wanted to, like, everything felt right. So we're just like, we'll just keep going, and then if we feel we need support and help, then we'll look for it. But at this stage, we feel okay with how it's going. So
Yeah, beautiful. So for anyone listening, like when your waters break, you as a mother every day have like a very minuscule but slight increased risk of infection, right? Your baby, same as if your waters break and you go into labor and you have a baby within that first kind of whatever 12, 24 hours to like
mm-hmm.
96 hours, which is kind of how far, or 72 maybe is like how far the research really shows. And after that, like most women just don't go longer than that, both because most women will have a baby within 3 days. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then, and otherwise just most will get pressured into induction because they say, they kind of go, oh, the dead baby card here again, like the risk of infection. But it's actually
Mm-hmm.
not true with the baby. It is true with the mother. Like you do increase with waters broken your own risk of having an infection because of that. So
Yeah.
it's very important if your waters break just to, you know, feel into if you're feeling fluey, right? Or if you're having
Mm-hmm.
discharge that smells, and like just keep everything out of your vagina. Keep clean, like hygienic. Keep changing your
Yeah.
pad, just be a responsible woman and you'll.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So like it's not a
Mm-hmm.
massive danger to not go and get induced when your waters break. And I think it's really important for people to know that, because that's kind of what's being portrayed. Like your waters break, you have to be induced because the risk of infection is catastrophic, which again, it's not. And
Yeah.
even for the mother, it's not that big at all. But
Mm-hmm.
it does increase for the mother. So that's just good to know. So if anyone's
Yeah.
waters break and you don't want to be induced, or, just definitely keep watch of signs of infection. Like that's what you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'd heard on this podcast when I was pregnant, one of the episodes, I think somebody, another woman, had had similar experience, and she said she was just drinking loads of water to try and like replenish, and I didn't realize that you could replenish the waters. And so I was like, had just liters of water with me all the time, just like, but I felt fine. Contractions were very gentle at that stage. We went for like a nice long walk, and it was very sunny, and it was
Yeah.
like, it was really a really nice sort of like
Do you
gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but the only thing is we didn't have any food or anything
Mm.
because well we thought we still had another few weeks. So yeah, we went to the shop that evening and I was kind of like walking around the supermarket, like stopping every now and then in the aisle, like it's okay. Um and then yeah, it was just slowly for the first 2 days. And I think it wasn't until the Tuesday, um, maybe afternoon that it was like, okay, it's on now, like it's
Yeah.
happening. And it was a lot more intense.
How was that for you to go for those 2 days with like
Yeah,
irregular
well at first
contractions? Yeah. Could you rest? Could you sleep at night? Like, did you get,
I mean,
yeah.
the the first night, annoyingly, we were both so excited. We were like, oh, we're gonna have a
Yeah.
baby. And then we were like, oh, tomorrow morning we'll wake up and the baby will be here. But it's like, no, that's not how it happened at all. So we had kind of had this little thing, like every day we were like, okay, not today, but tomorrow. Tomorrow the baby will come. And then it ended up being like 3.5 days later. So the first night we didn't, neither of us slept that well because we were excited, which is annoying. And then I think I could have because I wasn't really contracting strong or regularly enough to be kept up. And then the next night I didn't sleep well because I was contracting every 10 minutes
Mm.
and it was sort of like it was quite intense. But it was still manageable. I could still speak in between and things. And then it wasn't until the Tuesday sort of morning, late morning, afternoon that I was, it was maybe every 5 minutes by that point. And I was, I was kind of, I can't communicate with anyone anymore. Just, yeah, going into my own zone and not really like with it. So, but it took a while to get to that point.
Yeah. I was gonna say with the waters breaking and replenishing, do you know what it is that replenish the waters, like the amniotic fluid?
Yeah, I think I heard this from another podcast. You said it's the baby's urine. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
when you drink, obviously, that's
Yeah.
gonna it goes through to the baby, not as water, like it's going through, right? Um, you increase your blood volume, you increase your, that's
Hmm.
what, you know, water becomes, right? For you.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
so it goes through to the baby and the baby then pees that out and that's the amniotic fluid. So as
Yeah.
long as your baby's inside, it's gonna pee inside. It's gonna, that's
Exactly.
what
Yeah.
creates it. So yeah, it constantly replenishes.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I felt confident about that because I'd heard, other women's experience with that. And I think that's just another thing, like doing your kind of research and learning about what happens is just so helpful because it put my mind at ease completely. It wasn't even a question for me. I was like, yeah, it's totally fine. Let's go. We don't need, you know, we're not ready yet to have that assistance come in. So we'll just kind of keep going, just the two of us for now. And there was no fear about it. Like I wasn't worried, which is really nice because I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't listened to this podcast. So it was great to feel like that sense of ease because I think there's so much that you can get scared about with pregnancy, especially towards the end. And yeah, I felt quite confident that all was well. I could feel baby moving loads, so I just kind of rode through the waves and yeah, got to established labor. And then we told well, I think our doula arrived maybe 4 or 5 p.m. on the Tuesday evening. And then the midwives, I think 9 o'clock and 10:30. So
And what was it that made you call them in? Was it like you got regular contractions, or what made you feel like, okay, here it is, like this is it?
yeah, well, I think with our doula, we've sent her a voice note the day that my watches broke. And she was like, great, just like keep calm, stay relaxed, rest, like do all this stuff. And we were like, what? Why is she not excited? Why is she not like, because she obviously knew like this can take time. And we were like, oh, she doesn't think she needs to come round straight away, kind of thing. And we were like, oh, fine, like we'll wait until things get a bit more intense. And then, when we would like, it was 2 days later that we called her, we were like, ah, yeah, that's probably why she was so relaxed. um, so yeah, we called her to come in, and I think I was in. We had a birth pool, and I was reluctant to get in it because I'd heard other women say that if you get in it too early, it can slow things down. But I really wanted, like, because we didn't have, all I had was a comb that I was using to squeeze. And we couldn't have gas and air because we have, our heating is fire. So it's
Right.
dangerous because it could be
Yes.
explosion. So my only option was the water, really. And I was like,
Mm.
oh God, I was like really just finding it tough at that point. And I mean, I think when the doula arrived, she kind of I was just sitting on a birth ball holding on to the banister, just with my head in my hands, just breathing. And I don't think I even said hi to her. I think my husband was feeding me frozen bits of fruit. I think I just like looked at her and said, like, frozen grapes are really good. She was like, okay. Like, I think my husband said she kind of looked at him there, and it was like, gave him this like look of like, here we go, like this is, we're getting close now.
Mm.
And he was like, oh, thank God she's here. Like, I feel so much better to have that, like, knowing, because obviously, I
Mm.
mean, neither of us had done it before, so we didn't know what to expect.
Right.
So I think I got into the pool, and I had maybe been there a couple of hours, and I was feeling pushy. Like, I was breathing, but I felt like I wanted to be pushing. Like, there was a lot of pressure that I was like, I just need to clear this pressure out. And the only way that I could instinctually feel to do that was to sort of push. Um, and I think just before, maybe like half an hour before that, the first midwife had arrived, and she came through and asked me, like, do I want anything? Can I do, like, observations or examinations? And I was like, no, 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 I don't want any. Like, I'm happy, I can feel baby moving, I don't need my blood pressure taken or anything, I feel totally fine. I just want you to tell me how long this is going to take. And she was like, yeah, I can't do that. And I was like, oh, like, why? um so I think I said to my husband, get, call the midwife, just because I didn't, it was just that unknowing. I didn't know what to expect. And my our doula was great. She was saying all the right things, like, everything you're experiencing is totally normal, everything, you're making all the right sounds, everything is just textbook, like. But to me, it felt so, like, it was just so difficult. Like, it was, um I remember being on all fours on the mattress on the floor, just having this, like, conflicting cycle of thoughts, thinking like, God, I just want somebody to come and, like, give me a C-section in my living room right now, or like, oh God, like, I would love to know what an epidural feels like, or like, I wish, like, I've told, because I think I had said to my husband, like, I can't do this much longer. Like, I'm really struggling. Like, I am completely done. Like, I'm exhausted. And I kind of said in my head, like, I've told him that I can't do it anymore. So, like, he's obviously called an ambulance. So, like, that will be here soon. And thank God I can get in. And then I was like, oh no, I can't think of anything worse than being in an ambulance in this pain for an hour to get to the hospital. So I was just, like, cycling this thought process back round and round and round. But I didn't speak this out loud to anyone. So nobody knew that I was thinking, like, oh, an ambulance is coming, obviously. Because I just didn't tell anyone, because obviously deep down I didn't want to be taken away in an ambulance. But just, like, I was just so kind of out of it. Like, I was in and out. And yeah, so I think that when I had been in the pool for a while and I was feeling a bit pushy, and I said to the midwife, like, is there anything I can have for pain at least? And she was like, do you have any paracetamol? And I was like, and my husband, we don't really ever have that in the house. And my husband checked and he was like, we don't have any of that. So, and, like, my doula was like, well, remember, like, it can interrupt your birth hormones. So, like, if you don't absolutely need it. And I was like, well, it's not an option anyway, so I'll just stick with my comb. like squeezing the comb, which really wasn't doing it for me at that stage. But yeah, I don't know. She actually, my doula had a homeopathy kit with her, and didn't really know much about it. But she was like, "Oh, I think I have a remedy that I can give you to help you like have a second wind." And she gave me this kind of like it was like little sugar pills. And I remember thinking like, okay, I think I think I need something stronger. But it is I don't know how, but it worked because I something clicked in me. I got a I asked for an examination from the midwives. They were both there by that point, and it wasn't in my plan or anything. And I just felt I needed an anchor. I needed to know where am I? Like I'm feeling like I want to push, but then I don't know what's going on basically. And it was awful. Like it was really, I think it was more painful than the contractions having the examination. I really struggled with it. And because it was in between contractions, there was no break. It was just, yeah, very, I think that was maybe my only regret of the whole process. I wish I didn't feel I needed it, but at the moment I needed that. So, I just needed that kind of anchor reassurance to know where I was. And they were like, "Oh, it's great. You're 5 or 6 centimeters." And I just like head just hit the pillow and I was like, "What?" I've been here for 3 days and I'm only like halfway. Um, and I just couldn't believe it. Like I just thought like I felt like I was needing to push. I must be like 9 or and our doula again like swooped in there with her words of wisdom was like just a number, it doesn't mean anything. Like
Yes,
it's
so important.
it can happen really quickly. Just
Yes.
and I think at that point she gave me the homeopathy
Mm.
tincture
The
like tablet thing.
remedy. Yeah.
Um yeah, so I took that and then I got back into the pool, but by that point it had kind of cooled down and it just wasn't the same relief that I had the first time I got in it. Like the first time I
Mm.
got in it, I was like, this is amazing. Like this is just so like yeah, just relieving the pain so much. But when it had cooled down, it wasn't really the same. And because I'd come out and gone back in, it just didn't do the same thing for me. So I think at that point I said to my husband, like, I just don't want anyone in the room. Like I just want it to be you and me. So the doula, our doula and the midwives were in the kitchen with the door closed, and they just gave us a bit of space. And I think I just needed to kind of vent a little bit and kind of just be not feel like I was being watched. Not that I was being watched or anything, but I just wanted to be completely like shut the door. And we only had fairy lights on and the fire. Um, and the fairy lights were too much for me. I was like, please somebody turn those off. They're so bright. So it was just in the living room in the birth pool by the fire. And I think I was maybe in there for 15 minutes before I said to my husband, like, I'm getting up. I'm marched through to the bathroom. And that's the smallest room in our house. It's just a shower and a toilet and a sink. It's like very tiny. And I was like, I'm going to go in the shower and, change the scene. It's going to help. I think that's where the second wind came. And I just stood in the shower stamping my feet, like marching up and down, just really, I think just trying to get like vibrations at my body. Like it was the only thing that I felt was relieving some of the tension. My doula and the midwife said that they think I was had a back-to-back labor because all the pressure was in my back and my low back, and I couldn't, like, stamping seemed to be the only thing that was helping.
I've had
So
that with women who have posterior labors, posterior babies,
yeah.
the instinct to
Mhm.
stomp. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just so like I'd never planned, I never heard of that, and I would plan to do that, but it's all I wanted to do in the shower. So I was just sort of in there marching, like shouting to myself to relax. I was like, just relax, fine. And I I came out of the shower and I just said to my husband, like, I need to sit on the toilet because I just need to get something out of me, because I feel like if I can go to the toilet, it will relieve pressure, like, and there's just too much pressure in there, and I just need to let it go. And our doula had said to us before, like, oh, remember, never underestimate the toilet, it's dilation station. So just like, if you need to feel relaxed somewhere, like, go there. So I thought, right, I'll just try. And I was kind of like, felt pushy again, and I was sort of pushing, but like I probably screaming, like sort of, oh, like these sort of deep noises, sort of moving around, and suddenly something popped. It sounded like an elastic band snapping, and I was sort of like deep, I don't know, mid deep groan, like, oh, and then I just went silence, and my husband kind of looked at me, and we were like, what the hell was that? Like, oh my God. And I think that's when we realized that when my waters had broken the first time, it was just the 4 waters. And then this was the the hind waters. And when I got my examination, they did say they could feel the waters bulging. So they broke on the toilet, and they did in my own internal examination, I could feel baby coming straight away. So I was like, oh my God, like I can feel a head coming, and let's get back. I was like, we need to get back to the birth pool. And I took about 2 steps and was like, no, that's not going to happen. Fell to my knees, and I was just in the bathroom with my husband, and it just lit by one candle. And we were just, I think it's funny because everybody says you'll probably end up in the smallest, darkest room of your house. And I was like, it's exactly what happened. So we were there. I think I was on my knees, and my husband gave me like a hot cloth, and I was like holding that to my perineum just to kind of like ease the tension, the pressure a bit. And I actually felt a lot of relief when it got, because then I was really pushing. Like I was, I guess it was kind of like half-hearted in a sense before, but by that point I was like, that feels so good to just start pushing this baby out. I think the people talk about the ring of fire being really, and I remember thinking like, I think this is the ring of fire. And it was just like a blink, it was just so quick that, and I don't really remember. I remember being like, oh, it's a bit stingy, but not really registering it as, I think the contractions were so much worse. Like the pushing it felt good, like to be able to push baby. And so I was on, I think my husband was behind me, and who said I was like up on one knee with one leg, kind of like in an L, and then I would change over to the other side, and then I was like putting my feet away from each other, my knees together, and just kind of like moving round and round, up and down, like on my knees. He was like, oh, I can see a head, like it's crowning, and I was like, I know. I know you can see it. Of course you can see a head. So he was like, oh, I can see it. And I think on that push, the baby came out up to his nose. And my husband, because it was just candlelight, he said like, wow, like, well, he didn't tell me at the time, but afterwards he was like, I was a bit worried because I know that they come out like a different color, but he just looked so blue, like he was just really dark. So he had a head torch on with a red light, just so that it didn't like disrupt me, so it wasn't too bright or anything. And he kind of flickered it in the baby's eyes, and he saw like the eyelashes flutter. And he was like, okay, we're on, like all's good. Because I think he was just scared because we were just on our own. And I think we had always talked about having our doula or a midwife with us at that point, but we were just not. They were just in the kitchen. So
they didn't know what was happening. They didn't realize, and no one got
no.
them.
Well, I think our midwives didn't. But our doula, she said that she, after a while, that we'd been, after we'd said, can we have a bit of space?
Yeah.
She was like, I realized I couldn't hear anything, like no, like, you know, me breathing through contractions or anything. So she peeked through the kitchen door into the living room, saw we weren't there. And then she kind of like walked through and kept her ear to the door. And she was like, it sounds like baby's coming soon. And she was kind of, she knew it was happening, but she didn't come near us. She just left us. And I think that was great actually, because I think if somebody came in at that moment, it really would have taken me out of it. So, and she was very much like, she just really, really protected the space. Like I think she said, obviously the midwives, they have checks that they need to do, and it's quite difficult, I think, for them when we were sort of saying, we don't feel like we need that. We just want to be like, we'll
Yeah.
let you know when we're ready to, we need you here. And I think they were quite keen to come in and like see how things were going. But our doula was very like, nope, you stay here. Like we're gonna just we like, they will tell me if they needs
Yeah.
extra assistance. And I think that worked for us really well. And like my personality, I could be quite shy, and like I think I would have found it really hard to have anyone else there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was pushing this baby out in the bathroom. So he came. My husband was saying the first push came up to the nose, and he was expecting second push just to come to his chin, and then the head would be out, and then the next one it would be the body. But the next push was the whole baby just
Right.
arrived. So he had his hand ready there and caught baby, and just passed him to me straight away. So I, yeah, just held him and held him up to the candlelight and said, like, you've got a little boy, because we didn't know, we didn't find out. So that was really lovely. But to be honest, I actually couldn't get to the sofa quick enough. I was like, okay, it's a boy, let's go to the sofa, because I really need to lie down. So I was just exhausted. Like, I mean, because also during that time I was feeling quite sick, so I wasn't really eating much. Not much was going in. I wasn't fueling, and the obviously the contractions keep coming. So when I think we had a couple of minutes in the bathroom, just like, wow, we did it. Like, we've got baby boy. And we walked through to the living room and sort of shouted through saying like, we've got a baby. And our doula was like there ready to congratulate us, and the midwives came through like, oh wow, like that's great. And baby, he cried so loud the second he was out that it was such a relief to me, because that was one of the things I was worried about. I think especially with like the whole narrative of stillbirth coming into my head because of ICP before, that was something that I was like, oh, like I just had a thing about it. So when he cried the second he was out, I was like, oh my God, like so perfect. So yeah, I walked through to the living room and just sat down and just like took it all in, relaxed. And he had this like thick mop of bright red hair that was just like glowing in the light of the fire. And I was just like, whoa, like I can't believe I just like you just came out of me. Like I can't believe you're like a proper tiny human who's here now after all this time. And so yeah, our doula and midwives just checked if we needed anything, we were okay. And then they just said, right, we'll leave you for an hour, just have an hour, your golden hour with him.
Beautiful.
And it was lovely. Like he did the little breast crawl and established breastfeeding, and it was pretty magical. But I think I couldn't completely fully enjoy it because I was still in a lot of pain with the contractions. And the placenta, I think, was also I think it was just it was putting pressure on the place where I'd been feeling pressure for the whole labor. it was just still sore, and I was trying to lie down, and lying down wasn't good, and sitting down wasn't good. And so after about an hour and 15 minutes or so, our midwives doula came back through, and they said, you know, it's usually that if you're not past the placenta within an hour, they like to give you the injection just to help it come out. And I didn't want that. But at that point, I was like, do you know what? Like, I have fantasized about C-sections, epidurals, like gas in air, everything. So like, baby is out.
Yeah.
I asked if we could cut the cord because I thought it would just be a lot easier to get the placenta out without being attached. And we waited, it had gone white, it stopped pulsing. So we felt, you know, comfortable about that. So my husband cut the cord, and then I was kind of like, you know, like hands-free, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, it was lovely for my husband to take him, because he got to do skin to skin for that time, whilst I was gonna get the placenta out. So I kind of had said, you know, I'm done. Like, I will happily have the injection at this point. I just feel like I have nothing left to give. And one of the midwives, she was ready, had it all good to go. But the other midwife had said, you know, like, one of the side effects of the injection is nausea, and you have been dry retching like for quite a long time. So I don't know if this is the best thing for you to have right now. Maybe you just wait a little bit longer, or we can, you know, she said, do you think you can push? And I was like, no, like, I just really don't think I can. Like, I'm just so exhausted. And she was like, okay, well, how about we try and stand you up and see if gravity helps a little bit. So I had doula on one side and midwife on the other side helped me stand me up. And then I think I sat back down because I was like shaking. I was in quite a lot of, I was just still sore. And the midwife, she was like, I think it's right there. Like, will you let me just help you? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, is it going to hurt? And she was like, no. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I believe you. But she gently pressed on my tummy, and I kind of pushed at the same time. And I was amazed. Like, it just came out like, it was just like a waterfall of jelly. Like, it just came right out, and it was, yeah, no problem. And the second that was out, I was like, the relief was incredible. Like, I just was like, oh my God. Like, and I was just ecstatic. Like, I was just buzzing. Like, I was like, God, beautiful baby. You know, I've done it all naturally. Didn't have any, like, you know, I obviously didn't need the injection in the end. And yeah, I just couldn't believe it. I was so happy. And I turned to my husband, he was just in floods of tears. And I was like, oh, like, are you okay? He was like, oh, this is just so great. And like, I just couldn't feel that is not an emotion I felt at all. Like, I didn't want to cry. I was just so happy. Like, it wasn't an emotional kind of happiness. It was just like, I could have gone out, you know, like, I was like, I am ready to face the night. Like, this has been the best night ever. So yeah, that was great. And then the midwives kind of said, like, we're gonna just, do you want us to check you? And I was like, oh yeah, I want to know. But I think at that point, if they'd said, because it was maybe about 3 or 4 a.m. by that point, I was like, if they're going to tell me I need to go into hospital to be sutured, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I don't think I can handle that. Like, I just want to go to bed. But they examined me, and they're like, you're totally fine. You've only got a couple of internal grazes. Like, that's it. And I was like, yeah, I bet it's because it took 3 days. So gave myself more than enough time to like fully open and get ready, and didn't rush it in any way. So yeah, that was like the icing on the cake. because they, just said like, and another thing I was a bit concerned about was bleeding afterwards, because when they were doing all the blood tests for the ICP, my platelet count was very low, which they said means that my blood won't clot as well. So I could be at higher risk of a postpartum hemorrhage. And so I was a little bit concerned. Obviously, you bleed after birth, and you see blood running down your legs, and you think, "Whoa, like that's a lot of blood." But they were like, "No, this is nothing. Don't worry. This is like hardly anything. Nothing to worry about."
Yeah.
And yeah, the midwives were great. They really, really put me at ease about that. And yeah, I thought they were just awesome how like they just left us to it, and they let us have our space, and they were there when we needed them, and I was so glad they were there.
Beautiful.
But ultimately, I guess we didn't, yeah, we didn't really, I guess we didn't need anyone there, but it just felt like reassuring to have that kind of support. I know they're just in
Yeah.
the kitchen kind of
Well,
thing. So
don't underestimate that, because, people might go,
mhm,
well, yeah, most of the time you don't need the midwives, like, because
mhm,
nature's design is amazing, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
like the safety that whoever that
yeah.
is for you, it might be midwives, it might be your doula or birth worker, fill in the blank, whoever it is that creates that level of deep sense of safety, that is
Yeah,
actually a massive contributing factor to a positive birth experience, to the physiology unfolding optimally,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah, totally.
you don't want someone to do things when it's not needed. Like the best
Hmm.
midwives sit on their hands
Mm,
95% of the time, and 5% of the time they do something. 1% of the time
yeah,
they handle emergencies. You know what I mean? You know, you don't pay for
yeah,
them to to do stuff to you. Well, you have NHS, so you wouldn't have paid for that.
hmm,
It's your taxes. But it's yes, the less they do, like if they do nothing, just great, perfect,
yeah. It's just
right?
that sort of safety net, like a feeling of safety. Like, I know that they're there, and that
Yeah,
they're amazing. Their jobs can come and help if we need it. But like,
yeah.
yeah, you needed to trust myself as well, that I knew like my body
Mm.
is got this baby in here, it's built it, like it's gonna have a plan to get it out. Like, so
Absolutely. And they sounded so
yeah.
hands off. I'm really impressed by that. I'm impressed that they quote unquote, allowed that golden
Mm-hmm.
hour without doing anything about the placenta. I mean, for NHS, I think that sounds amazing. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm really happy to hear that. That there
Yeah,
was no
yeah, it
pressure
was.
after half an hour, or there was no like coming in and tugging here and there. And I mean, that's amazing. That's beautiful. There's some
Yeah.
beautiful midwives in the system. Like, let's also remember that for sure. Some beautiful people
Mm-hmm.
that do wonders for women and babies and
Yeah, I think one of our midwives, she'd had all of her babies at home as well. So
yeah.
like, yeah, it was just really lovely to feel, just lots of layers of support with
Mm,
our doula and both midwives there as well. So
yeah.
yeah, it was really, really lovely. I honestly don't, like, I couldn't have imagined it going better than that.
Mm,
So and it was just, yeah, I just felt so grateful that it worked out that way for
mm,
because everybody says, the first one, oh, you sure you want to go like first? Like, oh, you're brave. Like, wow, I can't believe you did that. Like, what if something went wrong? Blah blah blah. And I
mm.
think like it's it's easy to follow that narrative if you
Yeah.
don't do the research, because
Yes.
just media and television and everything makes you think birth is such a dangerous, scary thing, and
Mm,
it's actually, it's just so natural. It's like what we're built to do,
yeah.
and we can do it. And people had suggested to me before, like during my pregnancy, like, well, maybe like you just have the physiology that won't birth a baby, because other people, women in my family, had different interventions, and like maybe like your body just can't do it without that intervention. And
Mm,
I was just like, don't want to believe it. Like I like, but it's hard to not believe it when I can see like, yeah, like other people have had that, and like I don't know, like maybe I will need it, but also why? Like, what is it that leads to that, and how can um what can I do to make it go the way I want it to go? So
Definitely.
like I had a thing about like I just wanted to experience everything. Like I wanted to know what a contraction feels like. I wanted to know what waters breaking felt like. I wanted to know what it's like to push a human into the earth. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted all of that, and I that's why I was so determined to try and not have the medication. Like I just really wanted to feel it all, even though I think in the moment I was like, whose idea was this? This is a terrible, terrible idea to have. But I'm just so glad that I stuck to my guns, and it happened that way. Because I got to experience it completely from start to finish, and I felt everything, and I know exactly what it feels like to have a baby. So yeah, it was yeah. I think type 2 fun, like not fun in the moment, but really, really great retrospectively. So
Well, that's the beauty of the magic of physiological birth. I think something happens at the peak of birth, like what you
mm,
felt after the placenta was birthed, which I really wanted to also talk about that. You can feel really kind of unwell before the placenta
yeah.
that comes out. You know how you were feeling
Hmm.
shaky and feeling really not well there before it came out. And
Yeah.
then you just had this surge of all this happy hormones flooding you.
Hmm.
I mean, and something happens there also in you kind of I mean now you're remembering it, but you're remembering it with this shiny glow around it. It's like
Yeah.
it's nature's
Yeah.
way of like, and you just get this peak of just oxytocin and beta endorphins and all these just amazing feelings after birth that makes you want to do it
Mm.
again. Like so many women just will
Yeah.
say, "Oh my God, I just want to do that again. I could give birth every day of my life." Like when you're in
Yeah.
it, when you're in the labor, you probably don't feel like
Yeah.
that.
You're like, no, no, no.
At the,
Yeah.
after the birth of the baby and the placenta, yes, a lot of women who have physiological births feel like that. Not
Yeah.
all. It's not for everyone that,
Hmm.
100% of the time, but most, I would say, have that feeling.
Yeah.
So if you had a first-time mama in front of you right now who's about to have her first baby and she really wants to
Hmm.
have a natural and empowering birth experience, what advice and pearls of wisdom would you give to her?
I think, well, a lot of people say this, it's, do your research, like knowledge is power. For me, it certainly was, especially with the ICP thing thrown in, like it was um so integral to how everything panned out. Because I felt empowered to make choices that were positive for me, that I wanted, that could steer me in the direction that I knew I wanted my birth to go. And I think it's so easy to just be told what to do by a professional because you trust them, and they know what they're doing, they do their job every day. But I think the difference is they don't know you, and they don't know what you want. And there's that's where you can have your advocate for yourself, and the only way to do that comfortably is to know what your options are, and to know what your what are the risks, what are the actual risks. Like,
Mm.
don't just tell me it's 5 times as likely or less likely or whatever. What does it boil down to? What are the chances? Like your first birth is not a dress rehearsal for your next birth or your next, like make sure you do what you want for that first one, because you don't want to end up thinking, I wish I'd done that the first time around. Because, if you're lucky, you get a second chance. Some women, you only get to do it once or twice or 3 times or whatever in your whole life.
Mm.
Make it count, like make it be how you want it to be, make it a memorable, like a positive experience for yourself.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your birth story. It was beautiful to hear from a woman with cholestasis that had an empowering natural home birth. Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please consider sharing it, leave a review, or make a contribution on our Patreon page. And if you want to connect on social media, then find the podcast on Instagram as The Natural Birth Podcast. Thank you for listening.